July 26, 2025. A date that will be remembered as a turning point in North American history. On this day, a chill has swept through North American relations. Not from the weather, but from Canada's abrupt and unexpected halt of all copper exports to the United States. The move has sent shockwaves across the continent, shaking the very foundation of a partnership that has lasted for generations. This decision, announced with almost no warning, has severed a critical supply line for American industry. The news broke early in the morning, and by midday, both Washington and Wall Street were in turmoil. Investors scrambled, politicians convened emergency meetings, and the sense of crisis was palpable. The U.S. relies heavily on Canadian copper, a cornerstone of modern life, essential for everything from electronics to construction. The sudden stop has left American companies scrambling for alternatives, with production lines grinding to a halt and supply chains thrown into chaos. The political fallout has been immediate and fierce. Former President Donald Trump, never one to mince words, has called Canada's decision a betrayal and a direct attack on American workers. His comments have ignited a firestorm of debate across the country. For decades, the U.S. and Canada have enjoyed a deeply integrated economic partnership, built on trust and mutual benefit. This sudden break challenges that entire history, raising questions about the future of cross-border cooperation. It forces us to ask, are economic alliances truly strong enough to withstand political pressures and shifting priorities, or are they more fragile than we ever imagined? What happens when a friendly neighbor uses its resources as leverage, turning a tool of partnership into a weapon of negotiation? The implications reach far beyond copper, touching every aspect of the relationship. The consequences are already being felt across U.S. manufacturing and tech sectors. Factory floors are eerily quiet. Workers are anxious about their jobs, and uncertainty hangs heavy in the air. The ripple effects threaten to disrupt not just businesses, but entire communities. In the coming days, we'll explore why copper is so vital to the American economy, the staggering financial cost, over $4 billion and rising, and the real-world impact on American businesses, workers, and families who depend on these industries. We'll also analyze Trump's fiery rhetoric and what it signals about the political climate, both in the U.S. and in Canada. Is this the start of a new era of confrontation, or a temporary rift that can be healed? This is more than a story about a metal. It's about a relationship under strain, a century-old friendship facing its greatest test, and a future that now seems suddenly uncertain. The world's longest undefended border, once a symbol of trust and cooperation, now marks a deep and growing divide between two nations. The stakes for both nations have never been higher. The decisions made in the coming weeks will shape not just trade, but the very nature of the U.S.-Canada relationship for years to come. To grasp the crisis, we must understand copper's role in our world. Copper is the backbone of modern infrastructure, essential for electricity, electronics, and transportation. The wires in your home, the circuits in your phone, and the power grids lighting up cities all depend on copper. Modern cars, especially electric vehicles, use miles of copper wiring for everything from engines to batteries. Its durability and resistance to corrosion make it vital for plumbing, construction, and industrial machinery. In hospitals, copper's antimicrobial properties help prevent infections. Canada's copper isn't a luxury, it's woven into the fabric of daily life and the U.S. economy. The U.S. doesn't produce enough copper domestically, making Canadian supply crucial. Without it, American industry slows, construction stalls, and the green energy transition faces a costly roadblock. The loss of Canadian copper threatens the very foundation of American progress. The economic impact is staggering, $4.2 billion. The annual value of copper the U.S. imports from Canada has vanished overnight. This isn't just a statistic, it's a seismic shift in the flow of a critical resource, one that underpins countless industries and products across North America. This isn't just a number, it's jobs, factories, and livelihoods on both sides of the border. Thousands of workers now face uncertainty, and entire communities that depend on copper-related industries are suddenly at risk. American companies now face higher costs as they scramble for new, pricier sources. Contracts are being renegotiated, supply chains are being rerouted, and the pressure is mounting to secure enough copper to keep production lines moving. For Canada, the move is a gamble, sacrificing a reliable customer for political leverage, while hoping to find new buyers in Asia or Europe. The stakes are high, and the outcome is far from certain. The true cost for the US will be much higher due to the multiplier effect. When copper gets scarce, costs ripple through the entire economy. From electronics to construction, nearly every sector feels the pinch as prices climb. Manufacturers pass higher prices to customers, construction projects stall, and the economic shock spreads. Delays become the new normal, and consumers start to notice shortages and rising costs in everyday goods. The price of copper on global markets has surged, benefiting other producers but hurting American businesses. Investors are watching closely, and volatility is now the rule rather than the exception. Market volatility and uncertainty make it hard for companies to plan, invest, or hire. Business owners are forced to make tough decisions, often putting expansion or new projects on hold. The $4.2 billion loss is just the beginning. The real damage could be many times greater. As the deficit widens, the ripple effects threaten to undermine economic stability for months or even years to come. This single decision has cast a long shadow over the U.S. economic outlook. Uncertainty looms large, and policymakers are scrambling to respond. The supply chain disruption is immediate and severe. Essential goods are delayed, and businesses are left waiting for shipments that may never arrive. The financial hole is deep and growing. With every passing day, the challenge of filling it becomes more daunting, and the consequences more far-reaching. The copper blockade's impact is felt most by ordinary Americans. Imagine a U.S. company making electrical wiring. Suddenly, their affordable Canadian copper is gone. Forced to buy from pricier sources, their costs soar, squeezing profits. They must raise prices, which trickle down to construction, appliances, and ultimately, consumers. The result? Higher costs for homes, renovations, and everyday goods. If companies can't secure copper, production slows, shifts are cut, and layoffs loom. This story repeats across factories nationwide, threatening jobs and family budgets. Inflation rises as the price of a fundamental material spikes. A political decision in Ottawa now hits American wallets and livelihoods. The ripple effect could touch millions, making life more expensive and uncertain. The crisis is personal, not just political. Former President Donald Trump's response has been swift and incendiary, capturing headlines across the nation and sparking intense debate. He's blasted Canada's move as a disgraceful betrayal, accusing Canadian leaders of weakness and foolishness, and warning that America will not stand idly by. Trump's message is clear. America is being taken advantage of, once again, by its closest neighbor and trading partner. He's called for heavy tariffs on Canadian goods, demanding immediate retaliation and urging Congress to take bold action to protect American interests. For Trump, this isn't just about economics. It's deeply personal and political, a direct challenge to his America First legacy and his reputation as a tough negotiator. He's using the crisis to rally his supporters, attacking the current administration for what he calls weak leadership, and turning a complex trade dispute into a central campaign issue. Trump's fiery rhetoric escalates the conflict, making quiet diplomacy harder and raising the stakes for both sides. His words put pressure on U.S. leaders to act tough, while making it increasingly difficult for Canada to back down without losing face. The result is a more polarized, confrontational atmosphere, with both nations digging in their heels and public opinion growing more divided. The chances of a quick, amicable resolution shrink as political tempers flare and compromise seems further out of reach. Trump's outrage has turned what began as an economic problem into a full-blown political firestorm, dominating news cycles and fueling uncertainty. The stakes and the risks are rising fast, with potential consequences for jobs, markets, and the future of U.S.-Canada relations hanging in the balance. This copper dispute is shocking because it breaks a century of trust and cooperation. The U.S. and Canada share the world's longest peaceful border and a vast, integrated economy. Billions in goods cross daily: cars, food, energy, and more, supporting millions of jobs. Trade agreements like the USMCA were meant to eliminate barriers and create stability. Canada's copper halt challenges the spirit of these agreements, injecting risk and uncertainty. For many communities, the Canadian economy isn't foreign, it's essential. This crisis threatens the very foundation of North America's most successful partnership. Why would Canada take such a drastic step? From Ottawa's view, this is a calculated move, leverage born of frustration over unresolved disputes with the U.S. By halting copper exports, Canada uses its resource strength to force Washington's attention. It's a high-stakes gamble, risking $4.2 billion in revenue and its reputation as a reliable partner. Canada bets the US needs its copper more than Canada needs the American market. If new buyers in Europe or Asia emerge, Canada could minimize its losses. Domestically, standing up to the US can be politically popular. The move is framed as a bold defense of Canadian sovereignty. The risk is real, but so is the potential reward, both at home and on the world stage. Canada is playing a dangerous game, hoping the payoff outweighs the pain. What happens next? The path forward is uncertain and fraught with risk. The best-case scenario: urgent diplomacy, with both sides seeking compromise to restore trade. More likely, retaliatory measures escalate the dispute. Tariffs, trade barriers, and a full-blown trade war. Both economies would suffer higher prices, disrupted supply chains, and lost jobs. The US will now accelerate efforts to boost domestic copper production and diversify suppliers. Legal battles through trade agreements or the WTO could drag on for years, prolonging the pain. The real hope lies in leaders recognizing that shared prosperity depends on cooperation, not conflict. The crisis is a wake-up call about the dangers of over-reliance on a single supplier. Only wise, restrained leadership can prevent lasting damage. The future of North American trade hangs in the balance. The halt of Canadian copper exports is more than a trade statistic. It's a fracture in the North American partnership. The $4.2 billion loss is severe, but the real cost is in disrupted industries, job losses, and rising uncertainty. Trump's fiery response has turned an economic dispute into a political crisis, making resolution harder. Canada's gamble is a reminder that even close allies have breaking points. The US must now rethink its supply chains and economic security. Will cooler heads prevail, or will this spiral into a damaging trade war? The future prosperity of the continent depends on the choices made in the days ahead.